Republican Congressman, District 1, Virginia, Dr. Rob Wittman. Dr. Wittman, good to have you with us, sir.
Good morning, John. It's great to be with you.
Okay, so you were right. Paul Ryan is Speaker. He went on these Sunday talk shows and did a pretty good job. No question. Went on 5 of them. You said he was going to be a great communicator. So far, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, Paul's got his work cut out for him. I think he's, as I said, a good communicator. But the good thing about Paul is that, he understands that the way the body works best is for him to make sure that the members, and especially those members that are experts on the committee, are the ones at the focal point in getting things done. And he understands, too, the importance of getting things done on time, getting a budget done on time, and making sure that you hold members accountable for that. And that is, if you don't get a budget done on time, you shouldn't get paid. And we wouldn't have had this ridiculous budget deal that passed the other day, unfortunately, if we'd have done our jobs the way we're supposed to, John, or that we would have gotten all the appropriations bills done on time. Then you wouldn't have had the situation where you're reducing funding for the military below where the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said is the ragged edge. So I am hopeful that we get the process back to where it operates, to where it empowers members, and to where we get the business of the nation done in a way that protects our national security, in a way that reduces our deficit, addresses the debt, and fixes the fundamental imbalances that we see with what we know has to happen. I mean, people look at this and they go, Rob, you guys need to get your act together as far as this budget. And I'm right there with them and said, you are exactly right. And we need to make sure we have a military that is strong and that can do the things it needs to do around the world and facing these many adversaries, countries like China that are, aggressively pushing back against us in what are just the rules of the seas and where we operate. And North Korea aggressively acting in continuing to test long-range nuclear weapons, what we're seeing happening in the Middle East with our weakness with this Iran nuclear deal and an aggressive Iran. At every turn, those are the things that we have to accomplish through a strong and unified effort on our national security, on our budget, and that's why process is so important. John, process in the Congress has never been something that attracts a lot of attention, but I think people are starting to get it. They're saying, Rob, you all need to get things done and use time as your ally. Get these things done early and get them to the Senate and push the Senate to do their job, and then get it to the president and push the president. If he vetoes it, then we can have the debate, John, about what direction this nation takes. And I think Paul said it well yesterday. This is about putting forth our ideas, bold ideas, not these little timid steps that we've seen the previous leadership take. We need to take bold, clear steps to say, this is what we stand for. This is the direction the nation needs to take, and here's what we are going to do to get it done. And I think that's what excites members of the conference about where we're going to go and the things that we're going to do.
Dr. Wittman, when you mentioned process, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people just can't believe that this budget, another $80 billion in spending, $40 billion of that discretionary domestic spending, basically turning the budget cap keys over to Obama. But the thing is, the budget came out Monday night, 150 pages. It got passed Friday morning, Friday at 3 a.m. in the morning, in the middle of the night. Congressman, this is what banana republics do. I mean, they put budgets out and pass it in the wee hours of the morning where nobody can read them. I mean, this isn't what you do in the greatest democracy in the history of the world. And you got all this spending bunched into 155 pages that how could you even read it between, Monday at midnight and 3 a.m.?
Well, John, you're exactly right. And I had the document going through to read it. And not only is it extraordinarily difficult to read it in that time, but if you've ever looked at one of these pieces of legislation, there are hundreds of references to the United States Code, to other areas of a previous budget document. It's almost impossible unless you have the time to then go research that to really unravel this complex document and figure out what is happening, where are the dollars going, what does this document mean, and it just goes to the point that we all talk about. if you're going to make good decisions, you better understand fully what you're voting about. So if you looked at the bill just from the standpoint of the transparency and how the process took place, you ought to have voted no. Aside from the fact that it creates imbalances there, it takes money away from our military in the first year, and I argue we need to be putting money there because we're losing readiness. And, John, in typical Washington fashion, this budget bill spends money over 2 years, but it tries to pay for that spending by saving money in years after that. Now, only in Washington could you do that. You couldn't go to a bank and say, lend me money that I can spend in these 2 years, and I'm not going to start paying you back until the 2 years following that. I mean, it's so mind-bogglingly wrong about how this process took place. And again, just as you said, the ability to even get up and debate it, the ability to get up and put an amendment to it, the ability to get up and point out where there are problems with the budget was confined to 30 minutes without the ability to place an amendment there, to try to do anything to fix it. It was like, here it is, up or down vote. That is not the way the process needs to work. It is counter to everything that I think our constituents want us to do. It's counter to what good government is, and it's counter to how we should be making good decisions.
Yet, Dr. Wittman, the Republicans have a clear majority in both the House and the Senate, so they control the process. So we're complaining about a process that your own party is in firm control of. That's a tough one for people to digest, Dr. Wittman.
It is. It absolutely is. It's a frustrating place, I know, for the public to be. It's a frustrating place for me to be, as well as other members who holler and scream, who, as you know, John, for the past 4 years, I put legislation in so we can absolutely get away from this. Budget done on time or no pay. Get all the appropriations bills done before the end of July or no August recess. You know, those are things we have to fundamentally fix. And I share the same frustration as the public does to say the fixes for this are pretty simple. Congress has got to do its job. It's got to do its job on time in order for the process to work properly. And when you don't do that, we see exactly what happens. These last-minute budget deals, these continuing resolutions, which we all know are ridiculously bad. They're inefficient. They waste money. They're the wrong way to make decisions. So I share people's frustration as well as the frustration that you express in saying, you know, the fixes on this are pretty simple. I just want to make sure we have more people in Washington that are willing to stand up, have the backbone, and say, Rob, I'm on your bill. Let's make sure we pass the No Budget, No Pay Act that requires members to pass the budget or not get paid, and the Stay on Schedule Act that says we're going to pass all the appropriations bills by the end of July. If not, everybody's fanny ought to stay in Washington until it gets done. That's as simple and straightforward as it can be and what it needs to be.
See, this is why outsiders are ahead in the polls for the Republican nomination. Congressman Wittman, yes. Trump, Carson. I mean, you combine these two, they're over 50% in every national and state poll out there. Unheard of. Even one cycle ago, this would have never happened. I believe one of these guys is going to be the nominee. And you look at what's going on, and that people are just beside themselves. I mean, I went to the event. I went to both rallies in Richmond 2 weeks ago and Norfolk on Saturday. We were live both times on the air. He gets a combined 10,000 people out, and they want nothing to do with a Republican-controlled Congress. And you know, it really, you look at what's gone on and you say, okay, we gave the Republicans a majority in the Senate. We gave them a bigger majority in the House. And now we get a budget passed by Republicans in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. like a banana republic, turning all of the budget caps, busting them, turning everything over to Obama and basically saying, here's a blank check, do whatever you want. And so for the average person out there, they're saying to themselves, what's the point? Right? I mean, this is reality, Congressman.
It is. And I share people's frustration. You see the things that go on inside Washington, and you're right. That's why folks that look at things differently, that operate differently, that live in a different world of reality are, putting their ideas out there, and those ideas are getting traction because people say, hey, listen, the status quo hasn't worked.
Right.
This craziness of not getting things done on time, this craziness of lack of transparency in the process, lack of members of Congress being involved in the process. And John, I can tell you, the vast majority of members that have come to Congress in the last 3 years, 3 terms, as Republicans have taken over the majority, came there for a purpose. They came there to get things done. They came there to change the status quo. And that's one of the reasons you saw this deep frustration with John Boehner and deep frustration with Kevin McCarthy, because you looked at it and you said, this isn't the way it's supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And we all were hearing things from people back in our district knowing that, we were charged to go there and get things done. That's what our voters put us there to do. And that wasn't happening. So, at least there's a change of direction in leadership there in the House. And I think a new opportunity, although, obviously this budget deal, I think, should have been the first step. But here we are. We've got an opportunity now to at least show people what we can do and that we can get it done effectively. So we have got to get that done, period. No excuses, no time delays. Now it's got to be done.
It's got to get done now. Obama on Friday announcing that he's going to send less than 50 special ops troops to Syria. No authorization for military force that we can see. No plan. So now we're going to put 50 of our young women and men in harm's way. No clear objective. What are 50 people going to do?
Well, John, we have the best special operators in the world, but you're exactly right. 50 in comparison to what's happening with ISIS and the efforts that are being put in place by Russia, pale in comparison. I believe this. I believe the president is just doing what's minimally necessary to mark time to hand this off to the next president, which I think Congress needs to be involved. As you know, I have spoken time and time again about Congress must act because its role is to declare whether or not there should be war against ISIS. And I think that time has come. As you know, under the War Powers Act, the president has the ability over the short term in an emergency situation to take military action. But this is long extended over that time. Congress needs to have the debate because, John, if not, we've seen these things happen in the past. The last time we formally declared war was in World War II.
Right.
But we've seen since that time Vietnam. How did Vietnam start out? Vietnam started out with a small group of advisors going in there, doing things, and guess what? It accelerated little by little by little, and then we saw where we are. We've just come out of 2 major conflicts in the Middle East. I want to make sure that there's stability there, and the U.S. does have a role in creating that stability. But with no plan, with no strategy, with the president not communicating to Congress what that plan should be, so that Congress can take action, communicate what that plan should be to the American public so they understand what is this effort all about, what is the United States going to do, what, again, are the sacrifices that we will need to make, both in our young men and women and in this nation's resources. That's a discussion that the president has to have, and doing these little tiny pieces of effort there, first of all, I think don't end up being successful, and secondly, take us further and further down the road of what I believe is war declared by the United States, but without congressional action to formally say this is the direction the commander-in-chief needs to take.
Well, your colleague in the upper chamber, Senator Tim Kaine, has been calling for this relentlessly for months and months and months. And he's telling us on the air that Republicans in the House are blocking it. Is that true?
Well, I don't know where the blockade is coming from, but I know that I've been very vocal with leadership to say this issue needs to come to the floor. It needs to be voted on. It needs to have action taken. And both myself and the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Mac Thornberry, have said the same thing, that we need to be addressing this issue, and we need to have a plan or a strategy from the administration. This effort is almost laughable as far as what anybody would believe the outcome would be with this small an effort. It's just not what we need to be doing with our military. It's not how you proceed with any kind of successful effort to defeat ISIS. And that's what the president has said this mission needs to be, to degrade and destroy ISIS. But there's no clear path to do that. And if you just do these little side efforts and not lay out what the strategy is, and secondly, not have Congress take formal action, then I think we're falling far short of what our responsibilities are under the law to get these things done. All
right, it's going to be the final word on national and security politics by Congressman Rob Wittman, Republican, 1st District of Virginia. That's the Central Virginia area. And he is also the chairman of the subcommittee on military readiness. Dr. Wittman, local politics, we've got an election tomorrow. I've got one more minute. I predicted today Republicans are going to pick up one seat in the Senate, end up with control, 22-18. I think they're going to pick up 2 seats in the House. Against all odds, somehow the Democrats closing on guns and tolls. One of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen in my life ever. You want to weigh in?
Sure. Well, we've had a chance to travel around the state, help a lot of our great candidates, and I think the Republicans are going to do very well tomorrow. You're right. At the last minute, the Democrats made issues of guns, but they also had issues made of tolls and what the governor's doing on I-66 in those areas. So I think it'll be the quality of our candidates and the quality of the races that they run. I predict that we have 23 Senate seats in the Republican column, and I agree with you. I think we pick up 2 House seats to go to. That would be, I think, 69 because we have 67 there right now.
Right, so we're in alignment with the House. You're predicting one more Senate seat for the GOP. Maybe one of these days we're going to see a governor, Rob Wittman. Hey, we're out of time. I want to thank Rob Wittman for being with us. Go to whitman.house.gov.